Hello everyone, my name is Stars. Today I will tell you about the plot of the 2024 film titled Substance, which will tell us the story of a new beauty injection with an interesting effect on the body.
Contract, contract, contract. Head between your legs.
The film begins with a demonstration of an egg yolk into which a syringe injects some green liquid, after which a second yolk is born. Next, we see workers laying the star of actress Elizabeth Sparkle on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. After the unveiling, fans take photos with the star. But over time, the tile cracks and passers-by stop paying any attention to it. Elizabeth herself hosts an aerobics show on television to promote women's youth, motivating viewers to stay in attractive shape. After filming on her milestone, 50th birthday, she decides to go to the restroom. But since the women's restroom was out of order, the woman visits the men's. While in the stall, Elizabeth accidentally overhears a phone conversation of the show's main producer, Harvey, who dreams of replacing the flabby, in his opinion, aunt with a young alternative. Later, while discussing her dismissal with Harvey over lunch, the woman notices a fly in her wine glass, which creates some associations with herself in her mind. On her way home by car, the woman gets distracted as workers tear down a billboard with her face on it. Because of this, she gets into an accident. Although she only came away with bruises and scratches, in the hospital, Elizabeth falls into a quiet hysteria. A young intern with a strange birthmark examines his patient and lets her go, but before that, he slips a flash drive with a note into the pocket of her coat. On her way out, she meets her former classmate Fred, who invites her on a date and hands her his phone number. At home, Elizabeth watches a video from the flash drive which explains an injection of a certain substance that will allow her to create a full clone from her DNA in which she can live every other week. Not believing what she saw, the woman throws the flash drive into the trash can. As evening falls, the actress drinks quite a bit and decides to take the risk with this substance after all. On hungover mornings, she receives an order number by mail that needs to be picked up at a specific address. The location was in an abandoned area of a residential neighborhood. After slightly opening the door with the scent key, the woman crawls inside. She finds an empty room. After retrieving the package from the box with her number, Elizabeth returns home. Inside the box are devices for activating substances, food for the clone, as well as for the original Matrix. The instructions require them to switch bodies every week, without exceptions, and remind that they are one whole. After studying the materials, Elizabeth goes to the bathroom to carry out the procedure. For the next few seconds, nothing happens, but then she starts to have spasms. Lying on the tiled floor, the process of division begins in her, starting with the splitting of her pupils and the separation of her spine into two halves. The young version of Elizabeth, seeing herself in the mirror, felt capable of anything. Not believing her eyes, which changed color, she notices a recognizable birthmark. After being sick with green fluid following her birth, the young version stitches a wound on the back of the elderly Matrix, after which she connects a nutrient fluid, intended for a week, into her vein. In the morning after a shower, the young version had a nosebleed, which reminded her that she needed daily stabilization through the Matrix's cerebrospinal fluid. The young version drains a week's worth, after which she injects herself with a daily dose in the leg. While doing stretches in a split, the girl notices yesterday's announcement about a casting for the role of the host of that very aerobics show. She immediately heads to it, meanwhile buying a luxurious pink swimsuit in a boutique that accentuated all her virtues.
Looks like everything sure is in the right place this time.
Introducing herself to the producer as Sue, the girl instantly receives a ticket to a better life. Before giving her final consent, she warns Harvey about scheduling issues. Every other week, she supposedly cares for her sick mother. The producer, sensing her potential, agrees to any conditions. On the second day, Sue arranges a photo shoot, after which billboards featuring her body began to adorn all the streets. The rest of the week is spent on rehearsals and updating the wardrobe. After 7 days, Sue exchanges blood and consciousness with Elizabeth using catheters and needles. The original indulges in scrambled eggs and connects a nutrient solution to the body of her younger self. Visiting the studio, where Harvey hands her the belongings left behind and a farewell gift, Elizabeth creates Sue's shift schedule. The woman was extremely tired of waiting for the day when she would be given a new set. After picking up the package, the woman continued to wait for the moment to once again turn into her younger self. When the time for the clone's activity comes, she plans a kind of renovation. The noise from the tools attracts the attention of Oliver's neighbor, whose displeasure quickly vanished as soon as he saw his new neighbor. Having built a secret room, the young version hides the Matrix and a huge painting of her in it. After that, Sue goes to shoot her new show, which goes perfectly. Producer Harvey does not forget to praise the new star every minute.
That's what I'm talking about!
On the last day of the week, Sue decides to let loose and stays in the embrace of a young biker. Elizabeth's nourishment is running out. This affects the young version with a nosebleed. Not wanting to interrupt her planned session of pleasures, the girl runs to the secret room where, contrary to clear instructions, she takes a sample of cerebrospinal fluid and extends stabilization for an extra 8th day, violating the rules results in chunks of flesh from the back. It seems to be true, but in reality, it was an unpleasant dream that Elizabeth woke up from. In the apartment, an unpleasant surprise awaits her. The remnants of yesterday's party that she needs to get rid of. While assessing the scale of the tragedy, the woman notices a blackened finger. The attempt to wash away old age leads to nothing. Soon she realizes that it is because of Sue, who was in consciousness longer than she should have been. Elizabeth calls a number to correct the signs of aging, but they politely hint that both women are essentially one person, and the violation of substance use rules not only has irreversible effects on them, but also entirely rests on their conscience.
Remember, there is no she and you. You are one. Respect the balance, and you won't have any more inconveniences.
Dissatisfied with what happened, Elizabeth cleans the apartment when she notices Sue's show on TV. Then a neighbor knocks on the door, asking to come over. Elizabeth accepts the injustice and goes for her next dose. Entering the cafe, she meets an old man who says that each time it becomes harder to wait a week, the woman recognizes him as the orderly who dropped off the flash drive. Frightened, she leaves. Finally, the old man inquires, has her other half learned to take pieces from her, abusing the allotted time? In horror, Elizabeth runs home, bumping into Sue's biker boyfriend along the way, for whom she is, of course, a stranger. To feel beautiful and desired again, Elizabeth finds the number of that same classmate from the beginning of the film. She gets dressed up, but the sight of Sue's advertisement makes her doubt her attractiveness. After a while, her complexes take over and she cancels the date with Fred. Instead, she climbs into the fridge and starts binge eating. Matrix's poor diet leads to an unexplained lump appearing on Sue's buttocks during the next shoot. Interrupting the shoot, she retreats to the dressing room where she pushes the foreign object to her navel. The object turns out to be a whole chicken leg, but in fact this is just a nightmare that has awakened Sue. In the living room, she horrifiedly notices the signs of Elizabeth's depression. On her way to work, she calls the producers, but they again repeat about the codependency of organisms. A little later, the newly minted star is called to the studio by Harvey to share some good news. Her rating is off the charts and the TV channel wants to make her the host of the New Year's show. However, for this, Sue will have to dedicate much more time to work. The clone decides to take more than what is allowed from the Matrix. A few days pass. The wound from the collection of biomaterial begins to fester, but this does not stop Sue. When it's Elizabeth's time, she notices that she has aged significantly due to the disruption of balance. The substance's tech support suggests stopping everything if she is not satisfied with the result, but the woman, realizing that the changes are irreversible, does not want to give up her younger version, especially since she is reminded again that they and the Axis are one whole, not two different people. Instead, Elizabeth, struggling to straighten her painful knee, opens a gift from Harvey, a cookbook, and prepares a bunch of dishes while a talk show with Sue is on TV. The girl calls her other half and predecessor on the show an old-fashioned dinosaur from another generation. This angers Elizabeth so much that she even covers the windows, from which a banner with Sue is visible, with newspapers. The retaliation is swift. Discovering the apartment littered with food remnants, the young woman goes into a rage.
Control yourself!
She drains fluid from Elizabeth with a reserve to avoid the exchange of powers for as long as possible. 3 months pass. Sue is at her peak and has already been confirmed as the host of the New Year's show. A day before filming, Sue notices that Elizabeth's stabilizing fluid is slightly spoiled. Tech support advises initiating the mind exchange process for secretion, but she does not want to. However, without stabilization, the young version feels physically unwell. With her last strength, she crawls to the bathroom to initiate the process and wake Elizabeth, who, due to the imbalance, has become reminiscent of a disfigured witch from fairy tales. The situation is made more piquant by Sue's boyfriend, who has ended up in the apartment. Elizabeth barely manages to scare him away with her grandmother's voice. Returning her portrait to a prominent place, Elizabeth calls tech support to say that she wants to end the experiment. The next day, when the deactivation kit is delivered to the cell, she carefully wraps herself in clothing and sets off. After picking up the package and returning, Elizabeth is ready to inject the syringe into Sue's chest when a voice in her head reminds her that after this step, she will be alone. Despite this, the woman plunges the syringe into the heart and injects its contents. but at the last moment she changes her mind. In a panic, the old woman brings the mind exchange kit, which she also injects into the heart instead of a vein. This leads to a curious result. Both versions remain on their feet, staring at each other in surprise. Noticing the destruction syringe, Sue lunges at Elizabeth and throws her. In response, Elizabeth hits the girl with a vase, after which she locks herself in the bathroom. Breaking down the door, Sue continues to beat her matrix. The injured old woman desperately tries to survive, but the younger version relentlessly continues to inflict injuries on her. After finishing the physical beating of Elizabeth, Sue heads to the show filming. After trying on a dress, she suddenly feels unwell. Isolated in the bathroom, she notices her teeth falling out. After rinsing the blood, she steps out into the hallway, encountering producers along the way. She has to smile without opening her mouth so they don't see anything. Trying to escape in the elevator, the girl notices her fingernails peeling off and then her ear falls off. Sue runs out of the studio and runs through the streets home, where she finds a vial with a single-use activator and injects it, starting another cloning process. After a while, a new and terrible version of Sue hatches from her. A huge and ugly monster calls herself Eliza Sue. Then she dresses up in a gown, hooks up with Sarioga, makes a mask from photos of Elizabeth, and applies makeup on it. Next, the monster returns to the studio, where for some reason she is allowed in without any problems. Live on air, Eliza Sue steps onto the stage to greet the audience. When the mask falls off, everyone sees her face, which shocks all the viewers completely. After another disgusting transformation, people throw themselves at the monster, deciding to kill her. The monster escapes from the studio, splattering the corridor with its liquid. Outside, it falls apart into several separate pieces. A piece of biomass with Elizabeth's face crawls to her star on the Walk of Fame. Before her eyes, her entire life flashes by, especially those moments when she was at the peak of her fame, after which the blob simply spreads out. In the morning, a janitor wipes away the bloodstain, leaving a clean but cracked star with the name Elizabeth Sparkle.
Take care of yourself.
Substance is a very bold film that tries to reveal the animal nature of the entertainment industry. On television, what you look like is valued more than who you really are. At the time of this recap, the film has a rating of 7.5 points on IMDB. How would you rate this film? Be sure to write in the comments. This brings our video to an end. Thank you all very much for watching. If you found it interesting, be sure to support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Stay healthy, watch only good movies, and play only good games. Goodbye.